it's all bad for Vladimir Putin. I mean, it's all bad. I'm looking at the news. I can't see a thing that's going to cut Putin's direction here in Monday's announcement. President Trump has been talking about this, teasing this major statement on Russia that's coming on Monday, and he's warning that there's going to be very biting sanctions in a bill that's in the works. I don't know that that's it. There are other expectations that people have. For example, Anton Gerashenko is talking about this announcement, saying there are some expectations that President Trump, who has expressed his disappointment in Putin several times now, will announce a large U.S. weapon supply to Ukraine. For Ukraine, which suffers from Russian attacks daily, that would be a very desirable outcome. I get that. I don't know if that's going to be it, but Trump's not dealing with Putin the way he used to deal with him, and I'll show you what I mean. So yesterday, we talked about Trump using his presidential authority to send weapons to Ukraine. And there were comments. The primary comment was, I'll believe it when I see it. That's very, very fair, right? I talked about it in this video here. Trump finally spends on Ukraine. Now, so this was announced. It's in Reuters. They're looking into what to send, $300 million worth of presidential drawdown authority. To put that in perspective, there's about $3 to $4 billion worth of what he can spend, but $300 billion. This would be his first use actively going at this, so that's good. It's not as much as you'd hope, but it's something, and it's moving the right direction. And again, the two questions were, I'll believe it when I see it, or that's more of a statement. A lot of people said that, and I understand. I totally get it. And then the second one was, well, can he do this, or does this require this House and Senate? He can do this on his own. He can direct that allocated pool of money how he sees fit. So there's nothing stopping him. Trump is set to use his presidential drawdown authority for the first time to send $300 million in military aid to Ukraine, according to Reuters. And then Julia Davis said the U.S. has $3.86 billion worth of presidential drawdown authority for Ukraine remaining. The last drawdown was a $500 million award by Biden on January 9th. So yeah, this is good that he's moving that direction. Che Bowes, who's often on RT, is pretty upset about this. U.S. President Donald Trump is preparing to send a new round of military assistance to Ukraine under presidential drawdown authority. Isn't that how Biden sent the dictatorship billions? Biden's war, indeed, he concludes. Well, okay, if Che Bowes is upset, that's probably a good direction. Pence, President Trump's first vice president, said Trump is realizing Putin doesn't want peace. He wants Ukraine. So regardless of what Trump has done, trying to exhaustively and way beyond what he should have, exhaustively bring Putin to the table by being nice, it's not going to work by being his buddy, by being his friend. So, okay, all reports. Now let's go back to another story that is good news. All reports confirm that U.S. aid, and by the way, I have like 5-6 different good news stories here within this first story. Okay, all reports confirm that U.S. aid deliveries have resumed, Zelensky has said. So he's noted that everything's back on track, noted positive signals at the highest political levels from both the United States and European allies. I'll show you both before we're done. Okay, Russia has historically here tried to play on Trump with, hey, let's have a business deal. Let's cooperate on the other side of this war. When we can get this over, we can, we'll make lots of money. That was in trade for concessions like relieving sanctions or things like that. But Putin's not serious. He's just tapping him along. I don't think you're going to see like memes like this are, I think, going to change here now, because I think Trump's tone has shifted, and I think the way that he's going to approach things has shifted as well. Believe it when you see it. Now, listen, I'm telling you, believe it when you see it. Don't just believe what the words are here. So, like, don't pop the champagne yet, but you might want to have it ready. Okay, Putin no longer cares what Trump thinks and says. He's betting Ukraine will collapse and that no one will stop him. New York Times, despite 6 calls, 2 rounds of talks, Russia escalated. Trump, we get a lot of BS thrown at us by Putin. Yeah, I think Trump's starting to get it and see what's going on. So we see, okay, let's resend this package that shouldn't have gone elsewhere. And then I did this video about 5 days ago. Not a lot of you watched it, and I understand why, because you don't really want to see what, Trump's happy talk. I get it. But here I'm laying out in this video, I'll post this at the end. This video talks about how Trump's tone has shifted over time, and you can see like eras of Trump's tone shifting. And so it's worth watching. All right. Germany and Norway ready to purchase 3 Patriot air defense batteries for Ukraine. Ukraine is currently believed to have 8 Patriot batteries. A year ago, Zelensky said Ukraine needs a total of 25 Patriot batteries with 6 to 8 launchers each to defend from Russian missiles. Okay, so 3 is not everything, but it's a step the right direction. And then yesterday I talked about how Rubio was saying something weird like, the Europeans, don't they have it? Like, the way I framed it was, I don't think that the U.S. wants to sell theirs or to give theirs or whatever. That, like, go find it with the Europeans. So maybe nothing will happen with that. But I think I misread that, and I'll explain what I mean. So Rubio did say that, and the Germans were saying, yeah, we'll purchase some. Okay, now President Trump is planning to sell weapons to NATO allies. Talked about that before the election. I said it was very conceivable that even if Trump didn't want to give anything to Ukraine, he might be very happy to sell it to the Europeans and then run a victory lap and say, see, I sold these weapons. We're not being taken advantage of. They're getting what they need. And, you know, I'm going to end this war or whatever it is. Like, that's what apparently is happening now. So President Trump is planning to sell weapons to NATO allies with the understanding that they then will provide them to Ukraine. 3 sources familiar with the discussions tell Axios a little bit more about it. According to Axios, U.S. President Donald Trump is preparing a large-scale plan that involves selling offensive and defensive weapons to several NATO allies on the condition that this equipment is then transferred to Ukraine. Reportedly, President Trump discussed this scheme with Ukrainian President Zelensky, French President Macron, UK Prime Minister Starmer, and other European partners during the NATO summit in May. So this has been on the table for some time. Axios notes that Trump is increasingly angry and disappointed with Russian President Vladimir Putin. I got it wrong. I thought that Trump wouldn't let his ego, but wouldn't let Putin overshadow him because of his ego. Now I think he's just pissed because he's not going to come to the table, and it's clear that he's not going to come to the table. And so now he's just angry. So maybe that'll be the motivation, not his ego. So, okay. United States is sending weapons to Ukraine through NATO. U.S. President Donald Trump said a week after the Pentagon said some weapons deliveries to the war-torn country were being paused, and he unpaused that, and now everything's back on track, it appears. Okay, Trump will sell these weapons to NATO for Ukraine. He confirmed he'll be giving those weapons, NATO will be giving those weapons, not the U.S., and paying for them. Officials deny that it's direct U.S. aid, but talks included Ukraine and Europe. So it's basically a 2-part deal to get there. Now, there's even this. Germany's ready to pay for 10 U.S.-made Patriot systems. Now, I don't know that that's going to happen necessarily, but somewhere between 3 and 10 is what the right answer is. And that would bring us from 8, what was it, 8 before? No, this will bring us up to 18. Let me look at this. 8 batteries right now. Another 10 would bring you up to 18 when they need 25 for total coverage. And that's a big step forward if it gets to that. Now, let's listen to this from this commentary was absolutely amazing. Listen.
The president said he's disappointed in Russia and told us he thinks he'll have a major statement to make about Russia on Monday. Though when pressed, he did not say what that statement will be. The president also said he just made a deal today with NATO in which he says the U.S. will send weapons to Ukraine through NATO, and NATO is, quote, paying for those weapons 100%.
So I think that's going to be the announcement, that's what's going to happen here. I could be wrong. It could be something else. It could be the sanctions package or some other thing. But like that's significant progress. That's a major zag. Like people have been saying, Gerdes, you've been saying zag, he's going to zag, he's going to zag. No, I said he can zag. He doesn't have a moral compass or internal ideology that's going to make him necessarily go toward Russia, but he keeps going toward Russia, but he can zag. And he zagged yesterday with, well, it looks like yesterday he was showing that he's zagging. And then this shows like he's zagging. So, okay, here we are.
Including the Patriot air defenses that Ukraine has been asking for and that NATO will distribute them.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen, it appears. Whether that's the announcement or not, that still looks like that's what's going to happen. So, According to the New York Times, Vladimir Putin messed up. I think that's very fair. Putin messed up. Relations with Trump soured. It's a strange twist considering how good things looked for Russia after Trump's election, according to the New York Times. The new president seemed to be respectful toward Putin, and Putin appeared to be on the path of getting what he wanted. However, instead, Putin badly misplayed his cards. I think that's very fair. And so it's all bad for Russia. Even this comment today wasn't, hey, we'll see in 2 weeks, right? Trump responded to Russia's strike on a maternity hospital in Kharkiv. They were asking about that. I know. You'll be seeing things happening. That's a different tone. That's what I was telling you in that other video. It's a different tone. You can see it. Okay, if Trump wants statues of himself all over Europe, says Jay in Kyiv, this is how it's done. Send those weapons. And yeah, I mean, it's reluctant. It's slow, but it looks like he's going to do it. Here's Zelensky talking about how he had a good meeting with U.S. Senators Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal. Those are the ones behind the sanctions bill. Our current priority is bolstering air defense. We touched on the bill introduced by Senators Graham and Blumenthal, and I think that's going to happen. It might be altered to give Trump the authority to turn it on and off, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. Okay. Meanwhile, special White House Special Envoy Keith Kellogg to visit Ukraine. He's going to stay for a week. So he'll be there when Trump is making that announcement. So that looks like he's trying to be there while they're signaling a shift of White House stance on the war in Ukraine, and that's happening at the same time. So again, it's all good. There's nothing bad here about for Ukraine. It's all bad for Putin. And then on top of everything else that we talked about, this is different than what we talked about. Look at this. U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee has approved the defense budget with another $500 million in aid for Ukraine, up from $300 million in 2025. Again, it's not billions, but it's something. It's moving the right direction. It's giving them and passed with a 26-1 vote. Like, so the committees are made up of just a fraction of the whole, right? But the Armed Services Committee with a 26-1 vote, I think that'll have a pretty good time on the floor as well when it gets to it. So that's above and beyond what we were already talking about. And again, is it $60 billion that we saw a year and a half ago? No, it's not that. But it's going the right direction. Okay, Zelensky discussed the 18th sanctions package, the European sanctions package against Russia with Costa and Ursula von der Leyen, stressing the need to increase pressure on Moscow. He thanked the EU leaders for their support at the Ukraine Recovery Conference and a new $2 billion aid package. That's good. Now, we're talking about the U.S. Senate. This is one of the more colorful Republican senators. His name is Kennedy, not to be confused with the president, not related. Putin is a thug and can't be trusted, says Republican Senator Kennedy amid U.S.-Russia talks. Putin says all the right things during talks and then does the opposite, said Kennedy. Here's the actual article in the Kyiv Post. And let's look at a few lines here. Putin has disrespected America, and I think he has disrespected President Trump, Kennedy said. Trump unleashed weeks of frustration with Putin over what he has described as meaningless gestures toward peace earlier this week. Kennedy, speaking on the Senate floor, asserted that most fair-minded people can agree on two things. First, Vladimir Putin is a dangerous thug. Okay. He's empowered. He has blood under his fingernails. He can't be trusted. Second, he went on to add, and most fair-minded Americans desire an end to the war. Kennedy went on to emphasize that Trump has attempted to negotiate, yet Putin has treated him with profound disrespect. So Putin has treated our president like President Trump has taken a bullet train to Chumptown. Weird analogy or weird statement, but okay. For Kennedy, Putin's pattern is clear. He says all the right things in our discussion and then does the opposite. Putin cares little for his own people. According to him, dealing with Putin is like hand feeding a shark. You can't reason with them. You have to make them feel the pain. Okay. I mean, again, this is all bad news for Putin. Okay. Now, next big story, second big story. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban says Ukraine has lost the war and so has Europe. But this is pretty bad timing, Orban, because I think there's a shifting going on, at least in the United States, and you haven't gotten the memo yet. Claiming no one else has the courage to admit it, he insisted victory on the battlefield is impossible and called for a ceasefire and diplomacy. And he also said this in a tweet, Ukraine may choose war, but they cannot demand that we join them. Ukraine didn't choose war. Russia chose it for Ukraine. Ukraine only chose to react to what Russia was doing. Bringing a country at war into the EU would mean importing the war itself. Our people have spoken no to Ukraine's EU membership. With their support, we have stopped this reckless plan for now, and we will continue to stand up for peace, sovereignty, and the interest of our citizens. That's absolutely nuts. Russia chose to bring war to Europe, not Ukraine. Like, you have to understand that. Okay. Next, I think this might have been part of what broke, because this Trump's announcement about the announcement on Monday came after Rubio's comment. I don't know that just because one thing happens in time and space before another that it's necessarily causing it. But Rubio came out and like nothing happened. In that meeting, Lavrov just brought a list of statements by Ukrainian leaders and complained that they just want war. Like, it was kind of nuts. Lavrov complained to Rubio that for some inexplicable reason, Ukrainians just really want to destroy Russia, legally or ideally physically. Listen to this. Like, this is crazy. Yesterday, I gave Marco Rubio a small selection of quotes from Zelensky, Shmuel Yermak, and Polodak. I pronounced the name wrong, which directly state the need to destroy Russia. Look, there's a reason for it, because Russia's trying to destroy them. So, okay. It's not like there's a reason. Legally, but preferably physically. And when Mr. Baroi and others like him claim that they want nothing but Ukraine's territorial integrity, well, that's just self-exposure. Like, he is masterful at trying to reverse mirror what the Russians are doing. And meanwhile, Lavrov has arrived in North Korea. He's scheduled to meet with his North Korean counterpart. The axis of evil grows stronger. Budanov said that North Korea supplies 40% of ammunition Russia uses against Ukraine. 40%. That's a lot of artillery shells. Okay, now I want to show you one more thing here before we're done. This is, you probably remember the Peanuts comic and psychiatric help. I've been full of great advice lately, so I want to provide you something else. Gentlemen, I know that most of you are older than me, and my demographic is 90% male. So gentlemen, if you're married, you want to go get your wife right now, because I want to show you something. Okay, you can just pause this, and here we are. Okay, you unpaused? All right. So a Frenchman drove 300 kilometers before realizing he left his wife at a gas station. 300 kilometers? Yeah, a 62-year-old man from Paris calmly drove off from a service station, forgetting that his wife was still in the restroom. He was traveling with his daughter, who was asleep in the back seat, and only noticed something was missing around lunchtime, after already covering 300 kilometers. First came the panic, then a call to the police. I lost my wife, but I don't know where. Pretty romantic, right? Police tracked down his wife using cell phone data. She'd been waiting at the gas station since 4:30 a.m., wondering if her husband had forgotten her on purpose. Husband of the year. So the reason I said go get your wife is, ladies, whatever he's done, it's not like this guy. Like, this guy is bad. Your husband is pretty good. All right. That's all that I have, my friends. Thank you for your time. Let me also add that if you're not familiar with my channel, please subscribe. I do these daily updates, and you can find me also on Spotify if you just want to listen to me on audio. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.